Hello my friends, welcome to Prime Strings and this video about online music lessons. I'm Henriette and today I will discuss the do's and don'ts in online teaching. This video is made especially with teachers in mind. If you are a student or a parent, please look out for my other video, Online Music Lessons Explained for Parents and Players. I have been teaching on Skype for 8 years now and it is my preferred platform to teach online. I will talk you through the process step by step, including how to download Skype on your device. Once you get going, I am hoping that watching this short video will save precious lesson time, because with a few hints, you and your students can make the most out of your online lessons. In many ways, online lessons are very similar to face-to-face lessons. There are, however, a few things that are different in online teaching, and I will talk you through these later on. Online lessons are a good way to think about your music lessons slightly differently. They encourage the teacher to see the lessons in a different light and to think about how you express yourself and how you word your explanations. They also promote your pupils' independence, for instance, because your pupil will need to be able to tune their instrument themselves and take notes, which can enhance your face-to-face lessons when you get back to these too. There are many different online platforms available that you may be able to use. Like I said, I mostly use Skype on my laptop. I've also used FaceTime or WhatsApp video or Google Hangouts, and someone told me about Zoom the other day. Whatever platform you use, you will need to download it on your computer or your iPad first. You should not be teaching lessons via social media as there is a safeguarding issue there. More on safeguarding follows later in this video. I prefer not to do lessons on a phone as the screen is a bit small to see much detail, so it might be wise to decide first of all which device you are going to use. Make sure that the device is fully charged or connected to a power source, as it will use far more battery than when you use a device for word processing, for instance. Allow camera access and switch on the microphone. I prefer always to use the built-in camera and speakers of the device rather than headphones and a microphone, because a microphone will rustle against your clothes and I find that very distracting. As I mostly use Skype, I will talk you through how to set it up. First, you go to the App Store or Google Play and find the free app. Follow the instructions on the screen and click Install to download it onto your device. If you already have Skype on your device, it might be a good idea to update it to the latest version. It might also be helpful to restart your computer or iPad once you have set it up or updated it. Before you start teaching, you will need to know the Skype name of your students, so you will need to ask for that first, for instance by email. The student and their parent will need to give you their consent for you to contact them by Skype. I am always particularly careful about obtaining consent. It is not enough to assume consent because the parent pays the bill, and I suggest you go for a formal consent form. Once you have the consent and the Skype name of your student, open the app and find the search bar. Type in the name of the person you want to Skype with, the Skype name of your student, and a list of alternative suggestions will appear. Before the lesson begins, you may think about a few other things. First of all, make sure you are in a quiet room which is warm and well lit. You probably have a studio or a music room where you normally teach your face-to-face lessons. Seeing that you are teaching from your usual room will give your student a sense of familiarity, which is helpful and reassuring, as being taught online may be a first for them too. If possible, set the device at eye height. Maybe you have a shelf in your bookcase or a high cabinet, or maybe even a spare music stand on which you can set the laptop, and I'll show you my setup here. I guess this same idea with a few tweaks can be used for teaching most instruments. Piano teachers may have to think again about how to show your face when you talk and how to show your keyboard when you play. Although I have no experience of how to do this, I imagine you might be able to work out a group call, as it were, where you as a teacher have two devices running at the same time, one for your face and one for your hands. It will be interesting to work that one out. You should position yourself in the way you would normally do in front of your pupils. So in my case, for teaching the violin, I position myself diagonally across from my laptop so that my camera films me from the right hand side. Your face should be well lit, so perhaps switch off any lights behind you, as well as your ceiling light, and shine a light towards your face. My music stand with my music is set up to the left of my filming device. Make sure that you have all your pupils' music close to hand, if possible, the same editions with bar numbers, and you also need to have a pencil and paper handy to make notes. You are going to have to think about the wording you use in your teaching, as online you are going to have to be far more specific in your explanations to your pupils. You are going to be much more unambiguous in phrasing what you mean than in a face-to-face lesson, when it's easier to gauge whether your pupil has a precise idea of what you mean. So you'll have to check frequently, especially if you are first starting out teaching online, that your pupil has understood exactly what you have asked them to do. As you gain experience in teaching online, this will become easier. I think this is an excellent exercise for any teacher, and having this skill will enhance your face-to-face lessons too. I also find that when teaching online, because there is less body language, you have to be much more expressive in your face and upper body, and you will need to be much more open and more engaging with the way you move and speak. So try to smile more, use lots of supportive nodding and so on, and I will show you what the difference is by starting my introduction to this video again, this time without the added expressions, so you can gauge for yourself which version is the more engaging one. So here we go. In many ways, Skype lessons are very similar to face-to-face lessons. There are, however, a few things that are different from face-to-face lessons, and I will talk you through these later on. Now, compare the same section of text when I use more expression. First of all, I smile much more. In many ways, Skype lessons are very similar to face-to-face lessons. There are, however, a few things that are different from face-to-face lessons, and I will talk you through these later on. Did you see the difference? So now I will tell you about some practicalities. Tuning up is the first issue that you may come across. I make a habit of letting my students have a go at tuning themselves early on in their face-to-face lessons. Tuning is not always perfect, but having a go will help the lessons, and your pupil will very soon get better at it. Suggest your pupils may download a tuning app or find my video about how to tune a violin on this channel. This will definitely enhance your face-to-face lessons later on. How often do you tune an instrument in a face-to-face lesson when your pupil is perfectly able to tune themselves? Please take into account that the sound will be different than in your face-to-face lesson when you teach online. Compare it perhaps to old recordings that you may have heard of old orchestras. Even though the recording quality was not as good as it is nowadays, you can still hear the quality of the musicianship. Likewise, in online lessons, you will get used to hearing beyond the sound, as it were. With some experience and with some goodwill and your knowledge of this particular student and their way of tone production, you will be able to make predictions of how you can best help them to enhance their tone quality. It will also force you to enhance your own sound as well when you demonstrate in an online lesson. You will need to make the extra effort to play with the most beautiful sound that you can, as you lose some of these in the ether. In a Skype lesson, you may not be heard when you begin to talk while the pupil is playing. Therefore, I use hand signals to indicate when I would like the player to stop. Sometimes that is more like that. And this works, and when you have a parent in the room, that will be a lot easier. If you find that the player doesn't see the hand signal, make a habit of asking them to stop at a particular place so that you can discuss things. You know, of course, where the usual pitfalls are in the pieces, and you can use this knowledge in your online lessons. What to do if you have to carry out small repairs as music teachers sometimes do, fitting a new string for instance. It depends if it might be possible to talk a parent through how to do this, or you may ask your pupil to drop the instrument off and collect it at a later time. It might also be wise to think ahead of a backup plan in case of a technical error. I find that Skype is fairly reliable most of the time. However, once one of my pupils wanted a Skype lesson in caves in Kazakhstan or in a busy suburb of Delhi with lots of hooting tuk-tuks, and that became a bit tricky. My backup plan, in case the connection drops halfway through a lesson, is to switch to FaceTime, or the pupils might video themselves playing the remainder of the pieces that you haven't heard, or with any specific questions that they might have. You may try another device or use a different video platform, such as a WhatsApp call or FaceTime or Google Hangouts. Always please bear in mind that the continuity that your online lessons offer is far better than having no lessons at all. So however clunky or unsmooth the online technology, please always remember that any contact time the pupil has with you is immensely valuable. If anything, it gives the student a reason to prepare for the next lesson. We talked earlier about safeguarding and consent. It is important that online the lessons have the same formality as your face-to-face lessons have. You are the teacher and your pupil should learn. It is wise to pause for a moment and to realise that you are not the young person's babysitter when you teach them online, which has happened to me before when the parent left during the lesson and left me in charge of a young boy. You will need to make that very clear to the parent. It can be done in a jovial way by just asking them to say hello to you at the start of the lesson. Part of that formality is also that both teacher and student are appropriately dressed. I have had an adult student turn up shirtless, which in other situations might be acceptable or even desirable, but it feels extremely uncomfortable in a teaching situation. So you have to be strict and set your boundaries very, very clearly. Finally, one last piece of advice. It may at times be quite hard to decide when the lesson is finished and who presses the stop button. I think it should be the teacher, and you will need to make it very clear when the lesson is finished and when it is time to go. You may announce this slightly earlier, slightly before the end of your lesson, like something like, for an end of your lesson, let's do X. And then you keep your goodbyes formal and brief, as the longer it is drawn out, the more difficult it gets. So starting on time and finishing on time is very similar to your face-to-face work. I wish you good luck with your online teaching. Any questions, please write them in the comments box below this video. I will get to read your questions and I will get back to you as soon as I can. If you think this video has been useful, please share it with your friends and colleagues and hit the like button and subscribe to the channel. Thank you so much.